Hey everybody, today we're talking about how do we keep our plants from dying after I install them. This is more of a DIY video of how to make sure you don't have this problem. If you've had this problem, you bought stuff from the store, you bought it from a local nursery and they keep dying, this is the video for you because this video is gonna help you understand, diagnose, and know how to prevent some of those problems from even happening in the first place and understand more of the causes, because there's a cause that can go both ways that we're going to talk about in this. There's an outcome, I guess, that can be caused from two different things, but the outcome looks the same. So knowing the difference is extremely important. We're going to go over that in this video. So what I always hear and what I always see is a homeowner says, everything looked great. We planted it. It looked good just the other day. It died just like that. And that's how it does happen though. You think it's perfectly maintained, you think it's great condition, you wonder, was it the plant, was it the watering, was it the lack of watering, what was it? And so often you're left with, well, I'm just gonna get another one and I'm gonna try again. And we wanna avoid that because that costs you money. Let's get right into this. It's usually not the plant. It's typically preparation, something in the ground, how it was planted, then some of the aftercare maintenance that truly causes the issue. Plants I've seen where people have ripped off a lot of the roots to force them in an area, not dug the hole deep enough, planted the plant too deep, too high, somewhere in between, watered it too little, too much, all with similar outcomes that all led to stressed, shocked plants. That's let alone just transplant shock in the first place can cause a plant to look stressed. Root-bound plants that don't get cut can cause a plant to struggle. Subsoils, existing soils that it doesn't like can also be a lot of problem if there's tons of compaction in them. So what we want to do is we want to fix as many of those issues as possible as we plant our plants. So transplant shock itself, if you're bringing a plant out of a container, you're going to probably have some shock when you put that in the ground because it was in this and now it's having to become acquainted with your soil in your area. Now, one thing you're going to want to do is if the roots are bound around that plant, which means they're spiraling around that because they hit that outer wall of the plastic planter it was in, and then they started spinning. If you see any of that, you're gonna wanna cut those, you're gonna wanna free those up so those roots can grow again. Otherwise, they're gonna girdle and bind that plant and it's not going to perform. It could look really good right when you plant it, but then it could start falling off a cliff. So that's one of the things you're gonna wanna do to help that initial install and help with some of that shock. Number two, poor soil contact is a really big one. People dig the hole, but they don't dig a hole that's twice the size of the container, meaning that you dig a hole just big enough for the plant to go in and jam the plant down in the hole, and you can't get dirt filled back in around it, so it leaves air pockets. This is a perfect condition to have suboptimal plant growth because the roots can't grow into air. They have to grow into other material, other soil, organic material, and so that's going to cause you issues. So you're going to want to dig that plant out further. You're going to want to dig that hole out further than the plant's root ball, 1.5 times to 2 times that root ball. So then you can put loose soil in around it and make sure it is filling that void so there are no air voids at all. Next, let's get right into planting depth. This is something that you see even with little trees. You'll see people plant trees too far out of the ground, it becomes a volcano. Everybody in the industry makes fun of them, calls them volcano tree rings and all these things because it's poorly planted. Well, that's one problem. But another problem is people will plant below the actual collar of the base of a trunk, which is there's the roots start right above that is the trunk, right? If you plant that plant so far in the ground that dirt is up that trunk even a half an inch or an inch or any at all, it can cause that plant to go backwards immediately. Old established massive trees, if you do that to, it can kill them as well. So planted too high or planted too low, both have consequences. It doesn't matter if it's just on trees. It is also on all your ornamentals and all your plants, all your shrubs in general. You want to plant, if there is a container you buy the plant in, you want that soil at the top of the container to be flush with the soil, if not just a touch, like a half an inch taller than the soil around it. Overwatering or poor drainage is another one. This is where I got into that little piece where I said it can go both ways, right? You can underwater or you can overwater, and they can both look like it's dying from not getting watered enough. So you have to feel the soil around the plant. If it starts exhibiting this look of drying out or starting to go backwards, because you could be doing both and they could both be causing that issue. But a lot of times if there's poor drainage, it isn't, you're overwatering it, you're actually making it die from too much water, thinking you're doing the right thing, and then it looks like it's dry, so you pour more water on it and the problem keeps happening, and the roots end up rotting and it ends up going backwards and it dies on you, and you wonder why, because you watered it so thoroughly all the time. Truly, the roots should go in a cycle of where they are watered and saturated to almost dry, and then repeating the cycle over and over and over, not just complete saturation. A lot of plants cannot handle that. And finally, ignoring sun and zone needs, right? Like there's a plant that is really, really close, says it can be planted in this zone, but all true landscapers know that like this thing is like, we are just a pinch away from that. There was hydrangeas, I remember when we were doing planting in Illinois, that were like, technically you could plant them in this zone, but you had to be 2 hours south for it to be better, for it to truly work. Or the sun requirement, you could technically be a little bit of shade, it could handle filtered sun, but it couldn't handle the amount of sun that you gave it, or vice versa. And so all of these things can look beautiful when you put it in, but then immediately starts going backwards. So as I went through these different pieces, I gave you little ideas of how to remedy, how to fix these, how to watch for this with the water, checking the moisture content around it to make sure it's getting the right amount of moisture. And everything we went over is gonna allow you to spearhead those problems and have better results on your planting. It's how we avoid those things. It's how when we see installs going wrong, it's the problems we look for so we can catch that stuff as soon as possible and we can have the most success. And a lot of times, even if a plant starts looking like it's going backwards, with good care, proper nutrition, just like the human body, right? Like fertilizer, maintaining, trimming, all those things, you can have something that even looks like it's starting to die come back to full, vibrant health. And those little pieces can make all the difference. So in closing of this, it's not the plant 99.9% of the time. It's those little tiny pieces that were just a little off, planted a little too low. Roots were bound and didn't notice it. Little too much water and the drainage was poor. It was already a low area. It was right on the edge of having enough sun. All those little pieces that you can adjust are worth the time and worth the effort to understand, so you can protect the investment in your new beautiful landscape. And if you don't want to take all of those into account, you want a plant warranty behind the installs, and you want someone to just do all of it for you so you don't have to stress, reach out to us here at Scooter's Lawn Care, because we would love to take that burden off your shoulders and give you a beautiful landscape that you don't have to worry about.